Picking up where I left off. Uh, this is um, this is on my playlist. It was a very intense project that I did, and I kind of put the book down because there's a lot to process. Um, Definitely finishing it this weekend, though. Okay. Uh, I shared of a dream that I had a few nights ago, and it's funny that I left off with this page, The Hate That Heals, Dreams, Wishes, and Fantasies. For most of us, it is only in our dream life that we are close enough to our unconscious, that we allow ourselves to know our own hateful nature, our own potential for violence and abuse. The Greeks emphasized the importance of the limb relaxing qualities of love, eros, sleep, hypnos, and death, thanatos, because they believed in the soul. The soul for them is encased in the body, and is only when we are supine, when the muscles of our body are relaxed enough, that the soul is set free. When the constraints of the body are relaxed, the soul is able to fly. When it comes to know our feelings, then, it is the state of dreaming, or its waking equivalent of fantasy, that our feelings are most free. In our dream life and in our fantasies, we can feel anything at all: love, hate, rage, compassion, hurt, revenge, and there is no danger. In our dream and fantasy lives, we can burn houses, we can target practice with our dearest ones, we can blow up the entire world. We can do all these things in our minds, but no destruction has been wrought. We are not bound by reason, sanity, concern, altruism, rationality, or justification. In our dreams and fantasies, our feelings, like our souls, fly. Fantasies begin for us even before we have the ability to form words. Fantasies are our first mental processes. They are psychic representations of our most primitive needs, having to do with love and destruction. We love the most and best in our fantasies. We also hate the most and best in our fantasies. For some of us, we hate only in our dreams and fantasies. The animal in the wild threatened with the hate of another animal has only two choices available to it: fight or flight. Since most of the threats we humans receive today are psychological threats, we have learned to adapt this basic survival tactic. We have learned to fight psychologically and to flee psychologically. Fantasy is psychological flight. The animal who knows that it can't win a fight will always resort to flight as its defense maneuver. Similarly, when we feel open, rebellion is not a realistic option. Fantasy becomes our only way of expressing our hate. Fantasies of escape serve the function of hating a beloved without having to engage in destructive behavior. Often these fantasies are unbeknownst even to the beloved, thus rendering them even safer. Tammy is an example of someone who coped with the hate in her marriage by escaping into fantasy world of better love. Tammy felt locked into her marriage. She was financially dependent on her husband, and any thought of separating from him was quickly squelched as soon as she thought of the consequences to their 4 children. They adored their father, and rightly so. He was affectionate, attentive, and always available to play with them, listen to them, and give fatherly advice. It was only when Tony had his periodic bouts of depression that Tammy felt she wanted out of the relationship. For days at a time, he would become uncommunicative, and what little he did say were complaints, blaming her for the fact that he didn't make more money, that their social life had dwindled, and that he had no control over his life. She read the message from him very clearly, that his life had changed since he married her, and that he felt he would be better off without her. Even at its best, life with Tony was not how Tammy had, in her youthful zeal, imagined it would be. He wasn't as adoring as she would have liked. He rarely complimented her without being prompted. He seemed simply to take it for granted that she was there and would continue to be there. The stability of the relationship was its strongest point. For the most part, Tammy had made her adjustments. But during Tony's depressions, Tammy would retreat into memories of the past and the boyfriend she had before Tony. Earlier in her relationship with Tony, she had continued to date Dennis. Tony was ready to get married after only a few months of dating, while Dennis wanted to wait until he finished graduate school. Tammy married Tony, never certain he was right for her. Dennis had since married, but was always glad to hear from Tammy when she called. Tammy and Dennis were not exactly having an affair. They were not having sex, though they did, with some frequency, express to each other love and a desire to be together permanently. They were having an affair of the heart, if not the body. Most of Tammy's calls to Dennis were during the midst of a particularly bad time with Tony. Either Tony would storm out of the house or Tammy would sneak out and, in her agony, call Dennis. She longed to hear reassurances about what a wonderful person she was and how much Dennis loved her. Being hated by one man didn't feel so awful when she knew she was loved by another. Dennis provided Tammy with a fantasized way out of a marriage that at times felt intolerable. Tammy needed this flight of imagination, even though, through 15 years of marriage, she never needed to act on it. She needed only to feel that being with Dennis was possible. Through our fantasies, we are able to find creative ways to sidestep our inclinations to act destructively. When we can find momentary escape in our minds, we often don't need to find permanent escapes in our actions. Children, too, find ways of escaping painful realities through flights of the imagination. One of my parents say that her parents were so damaging to her as a child that she constructed an elaborate theory about who her real parents were and how she would eventually be reunited with them. Another of my patients lived in an hour every day in a carefully constructed world where mothers and fathers didn't scream at each other and sisters and brothers weren't competing for the small morsel of parental love available. He was well aware that this world existed only in his imagination. But this world made the other world tolerable, and this world was his refuge.